Hello, sisters. Welcome to the Sacred Medicine Podcast, weaving powerful, soulful practices into functional medicine. Step into this beautiful space of devotion and explore everything from nurturing foods, rituals, sexuality, and awakening your innate sensuality. It is time to own your radiance. This is the Sacred Medicine Podcast. All right, we are back for another week of the Sacred Medicine Podcast. And this week, I have Asha Ramakrishna, who is both a scientist and a mystic. With a background in molecular biology and business development, her curiosity for the esoteric led her to attend seminary school as a young mother. She also practices Feng Shui and is a karma healer and is devoted to teaching human design. She is the author of the best-selling book, The Priestess Code, Awakening the Modern Woman. She speaks and mentors women in reclaiming their yin essence, as well as their powerful creative force residing within every human. She currently lives in Harvard, Massachusetts, with her soulmate, 2 daughters, and 50-pound Portuguese water dog. So we talked about her book, and some of the things that we talked about mostly were how women sometimes need permission to live bigger. And she has a whole chapter on permission. And I feel like it's such a thing that a lot of women need. They just need permission to do a certain thing. And we talked about that because I feel that if what you need is permission, if you're listening to us right now, today, you've got permission to live full out, to do the thing you want, to do the thing you love. Another thing we talked about was a woman's feminine voice, her voice, how important it is for women to really be tapped into her truth and her voice. And we talked also a little bit about some ways you can really figure out if this is what year this is for you in terms of, is it a year to grow? Is it a year to sort of be a little inward? Is it a year to, for example, like write a book or something like that? Is it a year to actually grow your business? So she gives a really awesome, there's a graph in the book, but she also has a link. I'm going to be having a link to the Facebook group where you can find this really amazing graph and figure out how to find the number. It's really super, super cool. And we also talked about a woman's wants and needs, of what a woman wants and also what her soul wants. And so these are all such beautiful topics. And without further ado, let's go on to the interview. This week we have a new guest. Her name is Asha Ramakrishna. She wrote a book called The Priestess Code, Awakening the Modern Woman. Asha, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thanks for having me. And thanks for reading the book. I appreciate that.
Of course. So I wanted to first start because I just, the title really, it just spoke to me. And since this podcast is really on helping women just kind of become leaders, awaken, to become empowered, tell me why you wrote this book to begin with.
Oh my goodness. Well, that's a story in its own. I knew I wanted to write a book because I was beginning to, through what happened is I thought I was going to be writing a book for mothers. And so I started interviewing women who were mothers. And what unfolded in the interviews was that all my judgment on humans started dropping off and melting away. And what started happening to me is that I was beginning to have this level of compassion and kind of like I was relating to their stories and almost like I could feel that oneness, oh, you went through something really heavy. And although I didn't go through that same exact thing, there's something in me that really resonates with that and really connects with that. And therefore, I really connect with you. And whatever ideas I have of what you are or you're not, just like it's irrelevant. And so that kind of began this like journey of like dropping into full compassion. And in the middle of doing the interviews, I mean, not more than 2 months into doing the interviews, I had that mystical experience that you read in the book,
Yeah.
where I heard, hold these principles to be truth and to live by. And, I was like, what is going on right now? And I just like, got out of the shower, water dripping everywhere. And I just wrote down what I heard. And these principles, I mean, my jaw dropped and I could feel them in my heart. And I was just like, these are really nice, but I don't live this way. So I knew that they were the invitation for me to begin to open up to a more subtle, a more organic, a more yin, a more accepting, cyclical, like fierce and trusting way of living.
Wow, how beautiful. Now, had you been sort of praying for a sign or asking for some sort of direction?
Not really. I was definitely at a crossroads in my life. I had just left my corporate job, and that was a full trust journey in itself. And I had space in my life to meditate more. And so I thought, oh, okay, while I'm doing this, I'm going to build up my coaching practice, and I'm going to write this book. And so I wasn't looking for anything. I could feel and taste that there was a different way of being.
Got it. You talk about that women are seasonal beings. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, I spent 2 years on that principle. I mean, out of 7 principles, I spent 2 years on that principle because I was like, I don't understand this. I was in this paradigm. So I migrated from Venezuela. I'm the oldest of 5. In my head, I was like, I'm just about achieving, making enough money so I can support myself, my family, send money back to my family, like all that stuff. And being a seasonal being felt to me like I don't get the point of that. Like, I don't get the point of a pause. I don't get the point of being more internal in winter. I just, it wasn't in my consciousness, quite frankly. And this principle just obviously, like, when something comes to you and it's beautiful and you know that it's important, but you don't understand it and you don't live it, or at least for me, what happened is I was like, I went into like research mode. Like, what does this mean? And my background's as a scientist, right? So I was like, well, what does this mean? And I started paying attention to each of the seasons, like winter. And, I live in New England. So to me, it's like at that moment, I was like, there is no value in winter. It sucks. I
Yes,
hate
it does.
cold, like all the things. But when I really sat in contemplation of what it actually brought me, I started to see the blessings of it, right? And so the outside season can give us indications of certain seasons that we go through. And so that's one way of sort of relating and kind of making sense of what's going on in our lives. And there's another tool that I have in the book, which is 9-Star Key, which is a branch of feng shui that deals with understanding our yearly cycles based on the energy system, like all the different elements. But each of the elements, or there's a 9-year cycle, and in each of the years, you get to explore a certain aspect of your own personal evolution. Like one year it'll be all about spirituality and all about kind of setting the foundation for the next 9 years. Then it's like planting the seeds. Then it's like, a year saying yes, a year of being discerning, a year of balance, a year of leadership, a year of having fun, a year of back, kind of a little bit more internal of spirituality, and then the year of fame. And so these are different ways in which we can understand our own inner seasons. And sometimes the outer seasons, like it's going to be winter, but you feel super alive. Or it can be like summer and you feel more winter internally. But they're just ways of us being able to help us understand what it is that we are going through and allowing space and acceptance for whatever is, right? Like radically accepting whatever season we're in. So that, not so that we can wallow in it, but so that we can understand where we are and still know that it's a seasonal thing. It's a season.
Right. Yeah, I totally get that. Now, I did this and I saw so this is where I was a little tiny bit confused. So you have a chart and I looked at the year I was born and it says to soil, but then,
Okay. Me too.
oh, and then it goes down to the next page, yearly cycles to simplify calculation, to know what your yearly cycle you're in 2017. So then I was lost. I'm like, okay, why does it say 2017? You add 4 to the primary number. And so then I was confused.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So basically what you would do, so for that year, 2017, you'd add 4, meaning you would go, okay, you're to soil, so you'd go 3, 4, 5, 6. So that year you were in a 6 metal year. But since now we're in 2019, you're actually, excuse me, in an 8 soil year. So for anyone doing that calculation, and by the way, I do have that, even if people don't buy the book, I have the chart available in a Facebook group that I have, and I'm happy to share that with everyone. But you look up what your principal number is, and then for this year, you would be adding 6 to it.
Okay, so where did you get that 6 from?
Okay, because in in 2016 you add 4, in 2017 you add 5, and in 2019 you add 6.
Oh,
so
okay.
It goes,
That's
so
just
you're
a number.
always, you're just constantly moving through this 9-year cycle.
Okay.
It is a little confusing, I understand.
Okay, so I think so now I think, so that cleared that up with the 2017, what it says here. But yeah, I can get the link for that Facebook group so then people can have access if they want to see what theirs is as well.
Perfect.
Okay, cool. So now is this, because I know there's definitely times in my life and even recently that I felt there was sort of somewhat of a, not stagnation, but it just felt like things needed to be, like foundation needed to be set first before I could do other bigger things. And I feel like the other bigger things are now happening now, but they weren't happening a year ago because I felt like that was a time of, I don't know. Is that sort of relate to this?
Yeah, there can be, I mean, some of the more yin, so there's this concept of yin and yang, right? Most people are familiar with that. Some years are more yin, so they are more internal. There is more stillness about them. And I think in our Western culture, we really see that as being stuck, or see that as like, well, like me, right? When these principles came to me, I was like, I don't really get the value of winter. I don't really get why it's good. What's a good idea to pause
Right.
and not be able to go outside and not be nice and warm like I was growing up in Venezuela. So what these years, what I feel like when and I prepare my entire family for when I know I'm going to be having a really yin year. And it's like, okay, I'm going to be doing a lot of inner work. Like this is the year where I'm going to be doing that. And I prepare my family for the years that are very yang, and that are the years that I'm going to say yes to everything. Like, of course, in our Western world, we love those years, but they have their own thing, right?
Right.
Like we have to prepare everybody, and we have to make sure that we're taking good care of ourselves so that we can manage so much outward energy. And I just feel like there's this, well, not I feel like when I look at the 9 cycle year, there's this dance of yin and yang. We get to go a little more internal, it with a certain flavor depending on the year that you're in, and then the next year we get to go big. So like for you, even though this year it feels like, ooh, things are moving, I am, I'm becoming more of a master of my craft. And for an 8 soil year, this is a really good year to open up to learning new things, to whatever it is that kind of intrigues you. Like this is a perfect year to learn.
Right.
And this learning that you do creates a even bigger foundation, because next year it's a 9 fire year. So as you can tell by the name of it, it's very much about being fame and having your reputation and who you are being seen more. And so you need to go through years where you deepen, right? So that you can be better prepared for those years where you are, maybe it's the year where you get a TV show, or publish your book, or another book, or what have you. Like, so we need these cycles, and we don't always in our culture value what this more yin energy brings.
Okay. Got it. Yes. And it's true, because over this winter I did write a book. So it was a time for me. Yes. And it's going to be coming out officially in September, but it was a perfect time for me. And sort of now is the time of like reviewing it, getting it all handled, pre-order for the big launch in September.
Perfect.
So that totally makes sense.
Yeah. And it's fine if it's in September, but February is really where that 9 year really comes to being. But it's okay. You'll be in that wave of promoting the book, of having it have a lot of movement with it. So it's good timing.
Yeah. You were saying that you sort of got a download about the principles for this book. And it was about a year and a half ago. I was at a conference with, I think there were about 10,000 people there. And I was just sitting there, and suddenly I got this download for not the book I wrote now, but for another book. And I wrote down like all the chapters, like it just all came to me.
Wow.
And I like just the heading of it. And sort of, I can't wait to start writing that. It's just been something I've had to been like, nope, you can't you can't start writing yet, because you're still promoting this other one. So I get that. We get these downloads, and I also wasn't sort of like praying for it or saying, show me a sign, or, so it's amazing when those things happen.
It's such a gift, I think we all, like, we read about people having those experiences, and I think we're all like, oh my gosh, I want that. Right. And I don't know that we can manifest it. Sometimes it's like grace that just pours on us, and sometimes it's something for the rest of the world to also know about, and sometimes it's just for us too.
Right. All right. So, okay. So the seasonal being, yeah. So when you say that you prepare your family, what does that mean?
Beginning of the year, I kind of do everybody's numbers. We keep track year by year anyway, and I just kind of tell my family, okay, this is your year of this is your year of this is my year of I'm going to be more internal, or I'm going to be building things. Like if I'm a little too self-absorbed because I'm in an internal year, just like tap me on the shoulder and say, hey, we're your family. Pay attention to us, right? And then also, if it's a year of yes, like the 3 tree year, I tell them I'm going to be traveling a lot. Like, are we all okay with that? Like, are we all in a good place? And we get to check in about this, right?
That's so amazing, really. I mean, wouldn't it be amazing if more families did this and sort of,
Yes.
rather than making everyone sort of, okay, we're doing this, or we're, not really even preparing their children and spouses for like what's to come for the new year. I mean,
Because
personally,
we don't know. Sometimes if we don't have this kind of information, we just don't know.
right. But I love it. I really love it. And I also I firmly believe that wouldn't the world be a different place if for every child that was born, they would go home with a pamphlet of their complete astrology chart reading.
Yes. Yes.
And say what their like gifts are, and what they're like, what they're like, how to sort of help guide them as they grow up.
Yeah, for me, it's an astrology chart. And then I don't know if you know, but I have been 14 years into human design. And that changed the way that I parent. And I didn't include it in this book. I'm hoping to include it in the next book. But human design has been just such a practical tool in my parenting, in my partnership, in myself, in my business, like all of it. So I'd say astrology, human design, and understanding the yearly cycles with 9-star key. I mean, that right there is just like such a beautiful information
Wow.
for everyone to know.
Tell me about human design.
So human design is a synthesis of Eastern, Western astrology, I Ching, which is based on this 9-star key that I talked about is based on the I Ching. I Ching, the Kabbalah, the chakra system, and quantum mechanics. So it's like one of those things that it just like layer upon layer upon layer. But what I like about it is that I see it as very practical. And in human design, there are different types. So there's manifestor, manifesting generator, projector, and reflector. And so depending on your type, you have a certain essence of what you're here to do. And there are strategies in which how you specifically kind of co-create with the universe. So, people talk about like law of attraction, and like there's one way to do law of attraction. You write it down and then you like follow the signs and da 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 da. But that's not for everybody. We all have little nuances of how we specifically co-create with the universe. And I feel like human design really gives you a nice like a little map of that practical way of unfolding in the world. And then adding that astrology piece gives you the kind of like bigger picture, right? So yeah, I'm obsessed with human design. I originally came to it because we were really struggling with one of our daughters, and I just didn't understand what was happening to her, and I knew that there was a divine reason, but I couldn't quite understand what this all was about. And human design just really gave me a clarity and vision for who she is, and then of course the domino effect of like who I am, who we are individually in the family, how we play together in my partnership with my husband, how we kind of our composite charts play with one another, like all that good stuff. So
amazing. I love it. I really do. I have to look into this human design thing more.
Awesome. I love it. I've been, like I said, I've been at it for like 14 years, and I didn't use it a lot in my business in the past. It's overwhelming because there's so many layers like in astrology. And about 4 years ago, I said to my girlfriend, Karen Curry Parker, who's one of like top 3 people in the world teaching human design, I said to her, I need to know everything there is to know about human design. She was like, okay. And so I went through like every level of, qualification, or, like level 4, whatever, master teacher. And now I do some teaching for her also. And I do human design consults. But because I realized like, it's just, it's so practical. It's just so practical. And when I talk to people about their charts, they're just like, thank you.
And do you go by their date of birth? Is that how you do it?
Yeah, it's a date of birth, time, and location.
Oh, okay.
So there's elements of astrology in there,
Oh,
and
okay.
you when you dig in that, and we can chat another time more into more layers of human design if you want to.
Okay. That sounds really, really just another facet to just help people, how to. Well, I mean, I love having my chart done, and I've had it done many times, and I have different astrologers that I talk to throughout my life, and just seems like another really cool thing to sort of have to access.
Cool. Yeah. Rabbit hole.
So one of the other things that you talked about in the book, and which I think is really huge for women, and I just wanted you to kind of touch upon it a little bit. You have a whole chapter on permission.
Yes.
And yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah. So the principle is permission is no longer needed. You are here to create with free will. Expand this awareness. I mean, right?
Yes.
The layers that we can begin our deconditioning of how we always feel like we need to ask for permission, even if it's subtly, right? And how to do it in a way that is empowering to yourself, but you're not like bulldozing over other people.
Right.
I mean,
men don't ask for permission when
oh
in
no,
business, things like
no.
that.
No, but we're also all conditioned to accept that about them. We're conditioned to, they don't have to be polite. I mean, they should. They should ask for permission sometimes, right? Like,
Well,
may
yes.
I please, right? Like, I mean, I think a little politeness of what we bring to the table is important for everybody to have, quite frankly.
Yeah.
But I think,
True.
as women, we are in the synthesis of saying, like, wait a second. This is who I am and who I want to be. And I am going to defy the norms and begin to assert myself. And it's not even, and like, we're not doing it. I mean, I think sometimes we can be a little clumsy with it because, like anything that we're learning to do for the first time, we're not going to be gracious and perfect at it. We're going to fumble a little. And also because there's this expectation that we shouldn't do this. So there's going to be some pushback. There's always pushback.
Right.
But it's like anchoring down and doubling down of, I can claim right now that I don't need permission. And I'm going to take my rightful place in this world in the way that I see it appropriate for me for the good of all.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that there's just, it's the conditioning for centuries that has kind of made us very timid to expansion and for growth and for really speaking our voice. Which brings us to the other thing that I wanted to, voice of the feminine. Would you say that that's sort of related to this? You also talk about that in your book.
With the permission piece?
No, not even. I mean, it doesn't have to be.
Just
but
in general.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I, and to kind of piggyback on what you said too, is that there is a conditioning in the world, but there's also an inner conditioning. Mm-hmm. And that inner conditioning is part of what I feel like, as much as we can, go to rallies and like, be upset with the world, which I think, sacred rage is a thing. I also feel that the more inner work that we do in looking at those nooks and crannies within us that hold ourselves back, the more that we'll feel more comfortable in advocating for what it is we need. And, I see this a lot with like, high powered women, like even in negotiating. I mean, negotiating sometimes it's like one of those things that I love to help people with, because it's, to me, it's like the epitome of empowerment. When you're negotiating an increase in your rate, or when you're negotiating a certain new dynamic in your partnership, or a new dynamic in your motherhood, or a raise at your job. Like, that is like such a beautiful place of like doing the inner work, and then beginning to express the power, like the very like divine, beautiful power that you're ready to express, and that you're ready to do it no matter what the consequences are.
Yeah, I love that. All right.
And so maybe that's part of what you're gathering for that, that feminine voice. I love to use the archetypes of the goddesses, because I love how they can, it's like they help us to see aspects of what's possible within us. Whether it's love, whether it's compassion, whether it's fierceness, whether it's the ability to like rebirth ourselves or rebirth relationships, like they really like give us that, the visual, the essence, the mantras. If you look at like Hindu goddesses, they give us like a full experience when we're wanting to claim a certain aspect of who we are.
That's true. And so do you find that, I mean, I would say several years ago, I mean, it's only been in the past several years that I've actually found my voice in general, just for stating the things that I wanted when I would speak up against something I felt was very wrong. And it feels so liberating to be able to speak your truth and say it without feeling any, I mean, there could be fear with depending on who you're talking to. But I feel at this point, it's like I just want, I feel so much power with my voice that I literally will go head to head with anyone or anything. And was it last year or 2 years ago, my dad was in the hospital, and there were so many mistakes that were happening. And I did not stay. My mother was like, don't make any trouble. Don't start anything. And I'm like, no, I have to say something. And so there was a lot of there were things, nurses that weren't doing what they were supposed to. I found them on Facebook rather than taking care of my father, who was having problems breathing. It was like this whole thing, from one thing after another. And I ended up going head to head with not only the resident, with the attending. And I was like, even if you're not going to listen to me, then I will, I want to speak to the head of the ICU. And if he doesn't want to talk to me, then I'm going to speak to the head of the hospital, because my father will not leave this ICU tonight over my dead body. He is not doing well, and I don't trust him in the hands of those nurses over there, because they wanted to transfer him to a different floor. And so it is, and nobody, and they did not move him, and I made sure of that. But maybe in the past, definitely in the past, I would have probably not said anything. I would have really kept to myself and just kind of watched, or I would have never tried to speak to the head of anything, because I would have been too scared to. But these days, it's like, watch me, because I was, I had to. It was my father's life. And it was just, it's how women are when we're here to protect our family or our children or whoever it is, our patients even. So I've been also a little bit more verbal on Instagram recently with the things that I'm saying, because of how much negligence I see on in healthcare and whatnot. So I've even just recently even more up the ante of how much I've been really speaking out and speaking up, and it's really feels so it feels liberating, honestly.
It's so important, right? And, like I was saying, like sometimes when we do it, when we're just beginning to do it, we're not going to do it perfectly. We're not going to do it diplomatically. We're not going to have the right words. And, as much as possible, obviously, if you have an ability to be able to kind of work through the reactions that you have, um, before you speak up, it allows for greater communication, right? But sometimes, like that greater, more diplomatic communication is not what's needed in the moment. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes like they have to see the fierceness coming out of us to understand of like, oh, she is not fucking around. Like
Yes,
this is no
exactly.
joke here. This is no joke here. Like, okay, yes, she's scary. They might be talking about us in the back or whatever, but they are going to move because, we mean business. And I'm not saying like that's the appropriate thing all the time. Of course, with your father, absolutely, right? And like what a gift he gave you to be able to activate your voice in that way. And
Mm.
now it's just like this spiral where you're in a good way, this like expansion that you're having because he gave you that gift of you advocating for him.
Right.
And so
I've never seen it that way, but thank you for you know, even bringing that up because I never really saw it that way. So thanks.
oh, yeah, everything is like that. I think in the moment we we don't always see it, obviously. Like when we're going through really crappy times, it's hard to see, like, oh, this is a gift.
Right.
It's only years later that we're like, that changed me and it's made me be who I am today. And it's not pretty when we go through things like that, but there's gifts in all of it. And I'm not saying that we always have to transform in these like biblical ways and these like, dramatic ways. And I don't think it has to be that way. And the more awake we are to the fact that we're here to evolve and grow and change and expand is the word that you use, the more that we have that consciousness, the the more subtle and the more gentle that those invitations are for us to grow. Does that make sense?
Yes, totally. Totally. Okay, so let me see. There was something else that I wanted to. Oh, okay. So the title of the book, The Priestess Code: Awakening the Modern Woman. What other ways do you feel that women are not, I guess, awake? Or are there things that they are not possibly doing or not seeing that you feel is necessary?
Mm. What comes to mind right now is the last principle, and it's your needs and soul wants are provided even before you need or want it. Embody this intention. And it's kind of long and verbose, but really what it's saying is like your soul has needs and wants. And if you can bring the consciousness and the intention and attention to the fact that everything that you need and want will be offered at your feet. And this is about wealth. This is about support. This is about partnerships, peace, like all these like beautiful needs and wants that we have. We Perhaps we live in a world where, I mean, I'm all about like building wealth and building prosperity. Like, don't get me wrong, absolutely. I think it's important, especially for women, to be in that space of really advocating for themselves to grow and prosper. But I also wonder, like, what would happen if we weren't chasing, but rather we were like grounded in our position in the world, to know that we are worthy of receiving. Like, what would happen? Like, how would that shift our day to day if we experience life in that way? And like, as much as I say, like, I would tell you, like, I wrote this book like almost 11 years ago, and I feel like I embody every principle, and that last one is definitely still a teacher for me. Still a teacher for me, because that takes a level of trust in ourselves and in the universe, right?
Right. And because, well, women tend to be more givers than receivers at times.
Yeah, that's true also. Like that, and that's a conditioning. I really feel like that's a conditioning, because really and I'm trying to move away from like feminine and masculine concepts. Like, I started to use more like yin and yang, because, and maybe I'm also like using the archetypes of the goddesses as like representations without delineating masculine and feminine. But when you break down the feminine concept to just give it some framework, it really is a receptive. It's more about receiving. And the giving is a conditioning, and it may not really be as aligned to our true feminine quality. I think we're nurturers, but I don't think that in our most aligned version of ourselves, we are here to deplete ourselves. There's a very big difference, right, between nurturing and giving of ourselves to the point of depletion.
Right. Oh, definitely. Which I think happens so much.
Yeah, it does. And we have to pay attention to maybe why I love those yearly cycles, because it's a reminder to me of like, oh, this is a really tender year. And it's probably a year where I'm going to have to really increase on how many baths I take.
Right.
Right? Like that's going to be more important. And it's going to be more important for me to have days where I'm in ceremony, and my family has to just understand that that's what I'm needing right now. So we have to be like, we have to bring that level, like we have to be conscious about, where am I at actually? Like, where am I at right now? Our cycles is another beautiful way of being a marker, of paying attention to, depending on what week we're in, of knowing, like, is this my week of doing a lot of action, or is this my week of being more internal and taking care of myself and kind of whatever I need to do, like watch movies or what have you.
Right. Well, also, I mean, I see women who do deplete themselves, and then they come to me because their health is not well, their hormones are not balanced, their adrenals are shot, they're losing hair. A woman's body is not meant to be sort of like go, 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 constantly, with no break, without any self-care, without these downtimes.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. It's, I mean, I think it's an epidemic, and, it's one that I get very enthusiastic about all the things going on in my life too. So I understand. And, slowing down to prioritize ourselves is a biggie. It really is. I know self-care has sort of gotten like, oh, everyone's self-caring,
Right.
but it's vital. It's really, really vital. And the higher you go, the higher stakes, the more of that we need.
Right. Exactly. Well, oh wow, this has been such a great conversation. I mean, I'm really loving so many aspects of your book, and I'm actually going to go back after we get off the phone here. I'm going to get on my, I'm going to look at the chart again, and I'm going to do some calculations. That's really
Okay.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. You do the people in your life. It's kind of a fun thing to, you know, to
Mm,
get on the same page of where are you and how are you going to use this energy this year?
yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, how can people find you?
Okay. So I also have a podcast, and you can find it on iTunes, and it's Women on Purpose. That's where I'm having a lot of fun. I'm probably taking a little bit of a break this summer because I'm realizing that, okay, I need downtime. Speaking of self care.
Right.
So there's that. On Instagram, it's Asha is now. I probably tend to post the most there. And then Facebook, it's right now the group Women on Purpose podcast.
Oh, okay. Is that where you have the chart?
Yes,
Okay. Women on Purpose podcast Facebook group.
yes,
Okay. All right. So, three really quick questions
yeah.
since we have just a few minutes here. All right. Three random questions. So, one is tell me right now what is on your bedside table by your bed? What's on
Tons of
there?
books. Books, of course. I love my salt lamp. I love my salt lamp. And a little statue of the goddess Sarasvati
Hmm.
and some stones.
What stones?
I'm trying to remember. I think I have some Andara stones, and then I don't know what other crystals I have, but like some crystals.
Okay. What book are you reading right now?
What am I reading? I'm reading a couple of books. I just picked it up. Um, oh, I can't remember the name of it. It's like the Magdalene something.
By Megan Watterson?
I don't know, maybe. Yes, I think so. It's a lot about like sacred sexuality, which I didn't know that it was about that, but I was like, okay.
Really? Oh, I'd love to know what that is.
Okay, I don't have it with me,
Okay. Well,
but
you can
I'll,
always send it to me and I can add it to the show notes.
okay, perfect.
And share with us what your morning ritual looks like.
Oh my gosh, right now I have such a beautiful ritual. I have sort of had different versions of morning ritual, and I used to think like I have to get up at 6 a.m. and do it all, or 5 a.m., whatever it was, when I was like, thinking that I need to fit in a certain box.
Right.
But right now, I have a pretty leisure morning, which there's a part of me that's like, ooh, I feel a little guilty about that. I kind of have a leisure morning. And then, like, once my kids are out the door, I am having this practice, and it's a little bit long, but it's right now because we're in this like retrograde season. So I want to do extra right now. It's a
Mm-hmm.
little long, but it has a form of meditation, and it's a visualization. I do a little mantra, and then I play music and kind of move to it. I've found like some great music on Spotify of indigenous inspired. I mean, indigenous inspired, but also the musicians are of indigenous backgrounds. And that's been so I've been doing that, and then on days where I do have to get out the door early, I move my practice to the evening. Um, yeah.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. All right. So I think so we've got the links, we've got where people can find you. Um And you also do some kind of, you said you do coaching. What do you do coaching
So
for?
right now I am shifting my one-on-one into a modern priestess school. And I'm starting that in September. And it's that's really good where I'm going to be doing most of my work. So I'm kind of shifting everything to that program.
Is that
Um,
online or will it be
it,
live?
it is. It's online, and the foundational temple is 3 months and has a piece that's all about presence and self healing from an emotional component, and then it has a component that is all about healing our lineage and activating our sacred DNA, and
Mm.
then um, what's the third component? No, I can't. What can I? Oh yeah, of course. It's about sacred balance, kind of going into the codes, the principles that are in the Priestess Code a little bit deeper to bring more of that true balance that we're needing.
Oh, wow. Okay. Sounds amazing.
Tons of ceremony. Like I'm all about ceremony.
I love
And
ceremony. Yeah.
oh goodness, it's the most precious thing, honestly.
Will you have live like a retreat at the end of it
I
or
know everybody asked me that, so I was like, okay, I get it. So I think that probably, I think we'll probably do a January gathering, and for everybody that's in the first cohort. So yeah, I think we'll do something in January because everybody, literally everyone who's enrolled, has asked me that, and I was like, okay, Roger that.
All right. Well, Asha, thank you so much for spending time today and for your wisdom with all of these topics. They're so beautiful and you weave them beautifully in your book. And it's just, I feel like we just need that, we need permission sometimes and we
Mm.
need downtime and we need just, there were so many topics in your book of what women truly need. And I think that in modern society, too many women are coming through my door in my practice, um, sick and imbalanced and having just lots of health problems and largely due to stress. It's just from so much going on, from not knowing how to really take care of themselves and take the time for, self care. And so thank you for sharing your wisdom today with us.
Yeah, of course. And and I think it's always important for people to remember that just because you're having a rough season doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. It's just really the time to seek support.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like we can't beat ourselves up of like, oh, I've let all the stress or I'm saying yes to everything. It's like, okay, sometimes you just like your body's like, girl, we're over. It's over. It is over. You must pay attention right now. And so we do. And we seek support. And, that support is exactly what we need. And that support brings us to that next level. And it's all good. It's just like, can we allow ourselves to really let ourselves be who we are meant to be?
Right.
There's so much of being told what we should be, and sometimes we feel like stuck between a rock and a hard place, or whatever that expression is, and like we feel like, oh, I'm stuck, I can't, you don't understand, my family needs me, and I gotta da 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 da, all these things, and all those things are true, and we also like have to vote for ourselves. Like we have to do that because we know we crave balance. We crave it. We know when we're not feeling good that it's not about popping ibuprofen. We know that.
Right.
We feel that. And it's
Absolutely.
what you said, permission. Like, can we give ourselves permission to be something different and evolve? So thank
Hmm.
you for chatting with me today.
Absolutely. All right. Well, have the most beautiful day, and we'll talk soon.
All right. Thank you, beautiful.
Thank you. Well, I really loved this conversation with Asha. If you want to learn more about her, head on over to margaretromero.com/episode 115. And you'll be able to get all the links there, including that book on her bedside table that I was wondering about, as well as links to all of her podcast, Facebook, and Instagram. And speaking of Instagram, if you haven't been following me, head on over to Margaret Romero on Instagram. Find me, follow me. And if you know anyone who has got lupus or has been suffering for a long time, I'm coming out with a new book very, very shortly. And it is called From Flare to Fabulous, 25 Things You Must Do to Avoid Your Next Lupus Flare. And if you want to pre-order it right now, it's free, only shipping. Head on over to margaretromero.com/pre-order. And that is all for now. I'll talk to you all next week. Much love and big hugs.